Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Said Dan channel, and I have a question for you. I think most of us are anticipating that at some point in the future, XRP is just going to skyrocket in terms of price. And maybe it even happens sooner than later. There's a lot of anticipation as a result of what's happened with the SEC v. Ripple case, crypto in general, although down the last week or so, by and large, clearly been moving to the upside since the beginning of the year. So the question is, at what point are you going to sell your XRP? Not necessarily all of it, but even just the initial, okay, I'm starting just like a dollar cost average in, making purchases along the way. At what point do you start scaling out of your position to some degree? That's effectively the question that my fellow XRP YouTuber, The Bearable Bull, asked, and just last night, actually. And I'm going to share with you the results to this point. At the time I'm recording this, the poll is still live, so if you want to cast your vote on his poll, you'll be able to do that. But first, I want to share with you a video clip, which I think is pretty cool. And I can totally see at some point in the future, there will be something comparable for XRP. And so this was actually a clip from an individual back in 2013. And this guy's losing his ever-loving mind about Bitcoin hitting an all-time high of $111. And so I can imagine, and maybe maybe it'll be me, but maybe I'll be losing my ever-loving mind when XRP hits $4, or maybe when it hits $5. But then you look past, another decade, and you're like, oh yeah, maybe thinking a little small there. I get it, that could happen, but that's kind of the fun of this stuff. And so I wanted to share with you this video clip, which is something I don't normally do. So for those of you that care to look at your screen, I'm going to play the audio and video actually, and it's a short clip, but let me just play through this because it's kind of a fun piece of history when you've got stuff like this. And I fully anticipate we're going to see something like this when it comes to XRP. But check this out.
I'm right here watching history be made. Bitcoin is now up to $111. It's an all-time high, and it's continuing to rise. I've seen it break 3 times today. It went up to 110, and this is the highest that it's been. It's ridiculous. Last trade, 189 Bitcoin for $111 piece. That's amazing to me. I mean, just look at this graph. You see this graph? That's the last 3 hours. Give me a second, I'll switch it up.
Okay, so that's the clip. Pretty cool stuff here, but before going further, and I do have a lot to say, I want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby, and just for fun. Now, of course, at the time I'm recording this, XRP is only 36 cents, womp womp, we can cry about it, but for a lot of people that represents opportunity, and frankly, the entirety of crypto is just down at the moment that I'm recording this, but even XRP being artificially suppressed due to the SEC action reached $2 when everything was rallying back in April of 2021. But let me show you the poll from the Bearable Bull here, because I think this is a fun one, and I would love to hear your responses in the comment section below. But you can already see how I voted. But the Bearable Bull wrote the following on Twitter, and this is his poll. At what price will you be selling your first portion of XRP? Not entire bag, but a small amount for profit taking. Now, he's already had, and this is just from last night at 7:20 p.m., and he's got now 4,906 votes, and there are 4 options. For those of you not looking, I'll just describe this. The first option is $2. The second option is $4. Third option is $10. And the fourth option is $15 to $20. Now, Twitter limits your poll selections to only 4, so that's why there's only 4 options here. Now, obviously, with all of you listening out there, clearly you're going to be all over the map because there's a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas of when they want to get, to a point where when they be at a point where they'd be willing to sell their XRP. But I think the way a lot of people are treating this the same way that I did, which is that. And I don't even have a specific, exact to the penny, amount that it needs to hit. But for me, I was just thinking, what's closest to what I envision being the case? And for me, that's $4. And I wanted to talk through this because it's so interesting seeing people's responses here. So let's go through each of the 4 here. So as far as the people who did respond that they were going to sell at least some of their XRP at $2, that's 11.5%. So a couple things there. It could be people that have an absolutely massive bag of XRP, and maybe they've been here a long time, dirt cheap, and they just want to, start scaling out that soon. It could be some people, of course, responding that haven't been in it as long, and maybe they don't have as a grand a vision in terms of what it would mean in terms of life-changing wealth for them. And for them, they just want to start scaling out some, if not all, at that point in time. So that's 11.5%. Then there's people like me who clicked on $4. So that's roughly the range where I'd start to consider scaling out, at least to a small degree. I would not sell all of my XRP at $4, most certainly not. But 16.4% of XRP holders that have responded to this poll said, yep, start scaling out about $4. And I'll just tell you my strategy here. And I have kind of mentioned this before, but I want to talk. It's so interesting to see everybody's various perspectives on this. My whole strategy, and I'm not encouraging anyone to do what I'm doing. I just think it's fun to talk about this just to be super duper clear. But my whole strategy has been to take more risk in terms of the amount of dollars that I put into XRP than most people have. And I know that thanks to the the open source nature of what the XRP ledger is, showing how many accounts hold what amount of XRP. You can figure all this stuff out. So I know that relative to other people, I hold a lot of XRP, and I'm not comfortable saying what that number is, but I'll just say subjectively, I feel like I have a lot. And if you look compared to others, it's a lot. And still, there are plenty out listening right now that I'm sure have way more than me. I'm not trying to come off as money bags, just talking through this. But when you, my whole strategy has been put in a lot of money, nothing more than I'm willing to lose. So I'm not like risking retirement or something like that in case I'm wrong, because I could be. Maybe it all goes to zero. Fine. I think that's the responsible way to look at this. But I put in more than most and risked a lot more in terms of actual dollars, anticipating that if I am right about this, even if there's just one more massive rally where XRP hits a new all-time high in interest price discovery, I'm good. I put in so much, meaning I took on a lot more risk in terms of the number of dollars I put in than most people. And for me, that's partly the strategy. Now, on the flip side, if I'm wrong, it's going to hit me harder and faster than almost anybody else also. So there's a trade-off there. That is risk, which is why, again, I'm not encouraging anyone to do this. I'm just sharing with you what I personally thought made sense for myself, because again, like I said, fun topic for conversation here. Now that also means though, so if I'm right though, and the reason I put the dollars in that I did is because I do have this conviction. If I'm right, then once XRP hits a new all-time high and enters price discovery, I will be sufficiently enticed to sell most, if not all, of my XRP sooner than others. So it's kind of a trade-off. Yes, I'm taking way more risk, but can scale out here. And so there's going to be fewer people who are in that bag. And so to me, looking at the results of the poll here, it seems like it just kind of reaffirms this idea I have that since I have taken a bit more risk, and I promise you, I hope it's not coming off wrong. I do not mean this in some sort of braggy way. I just think it's fun talking about this. Based on the results here, this is more or less what I would have expected. I wouldn't have been able to guess the percentages, but it's in line with my thinking on this, so that while other people, there will be a lot of other people out there who are for the first time jumping into XRP actually. And so thankfully all of us are here first, regardless of the quantity of XRP, we're all here first. So, awesome. That's how it is in investing. We benefit first should this thing move to the upside. But I think that a lot of people are going to be holding on longer as other people are jumping in. And so that's again, my personal strategy is get out at that point, because it's going to be an outsized portion of my overall net worth if I'm right in terms of where this ultimately goes. But again, that's the risk I chose to take. Now, that's again, for people saying they'll scale out at $4, 16.4%. Then the third option was $10, 33.4%. And then you look at the $15 to $20 bucket, that's 38.7%. So there are people that are looking for much higher price levels than I am before they'll even consider. Now, another interesting thing is, so like, even if you're in the bucket where you're like, no, I got to have at least $15 to $20, or maybe your number's even higher than that, certainly not knocking anybody. It may be the case that a lot of people out there, even if I'm right and I start selling and say I sell everything at $6, just making up a number, and I'm completely out for that moment at least. Even if that happens, it could be the case that people out there that are holding a lot less XRP than me, if they hold it for a longer time period, should it continue to move to the upside and you get a whole nother cycle after that, could make way more money than me. And that's good on them then. But it's, time's a factor in all this. And so for me, I'm just trying to reap the reward sooner. But totally interesting to see where this is all landed. And it's kind of just reaffirmed this idea that I think I have a sufficient amount of XRP to get to the point where, like, once this thing starts going, I will be among the first to begin scaling out of my position. And I would do that with anything that became an outsized portion of my overall net worth, whether it was a stock or any other crypto. That's just, if it becomes too big a percentage of overall net worth, you'd be silly not to do something about that. And it doesn't mean, even if I sold all my XRP, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't buy in after markets crash, because you know my cycle. I don't need to preach to you about this. You guys are smart out there. You know more than the typical investor, frankly. Once the emotions run high and people get euphoric, eventually things crash. That's a time where I would start scaling back into XRP should such a scenario unfold. So that's kind of what I'm looking at here. And so that's why I thought it'd be fun to kind of start that video with that guy back in 2013, mind blown about $111 Bitcoin. Because we now have the benefit of hindsight, and we saw it go to damn near $70,000 each. So it would be really interesting, if my supposition ends up being correct, and we really are going to see outrageously high XRP prices compared to now, like, say, fast forward to 10 years or 15 years, whatever. What if XRP really is $50 or $100, or just pick whatever your really high number might be? Maybe it's more. It'd be so funny to look back at this. I'm sitting here on camera here, talking about 36-cent XRP. Well, it's a screen grab, you know what I mean, though. And talking about how thrilled I'd be at, $4, $5, $6. Well, look at how excited he was at $111 Bitcoin. It's the same thing, and it's totally reasonable. It's not to laugh at it. It's just kind of make to the point that, well, a couple points. First of all, it's fun as hell to be in crypto, and the opportunity is very real. But it's. I also want to make sure that everybody's keeping in mind, like, the way things unfold, I still firmly believe if you're truly talking over the long haul, I think my investment thesis from 2017 is solid, which is quite simply that utility matters and will win the day. That's typically how I'll word it. Because I do think, ultimately, in a mature asset class, yeah, if there's a crypto that's useful, it's probably going to be here. Probably going to be here for a very, very, very long time, effectively forever. And in the short term, I also get that it's not quite the case that cryptocurrencies are sufficiently valued based on their own utility. And I understand that today. And there's this tweet from XRP community member who goes by the name Pompous Maxi, and he wrote, "Personally, my highest expectations for XRP price come from expectation of Bitcoin's price, and I'm betting utility will take over someday when the whole market matures. In the past, my most unrealistic XRP price expectation were rooted in unrealistic Bitcoin price predictions." See, I've been saying the same damn thing for years, so that resonated with me, so I thought I'd just highlight it. Because, yes, it's silly that everything moves in tandem today, but I don't think it's going to stay like that. In fact, you know what I think is going to drive this price just outrageously high, if you're talking about not just through perhaps the next market cycle, but going through a market cycle where we are in a world where utility matters? Well, that's when we get to the talk of, well, certainly the utility play, but that looks like, on a chart, a technology bell curve. It looks like an S curve, which basically share pretty similar damn information, but they represent that data in different ways. And I'm going to talk about that real quick. But what got me thinking along those lines was this article from the Daily Hodl titled "Bitcoin Targeting $10 Million Amid Rapid Global Crypto Adoption, According to Quant Analyst Plan B." And so Plan B is the guy that came up with he's the first to apply the stock to flow model to Bitcoin, so he's famous for that. He's got 1.8 million followers on Twitter. So one of the most famous analysts in all of crypto. Very easy to say that. And not that I buy into his stock to flow model at this point, as with each subsequent halving, I think it matters that much less, because almost all Bitcoin has already been mined. So even if you cut down the reward for miners in half, you do that again and again and again, it matters less every single time you do that, frankly. It's already almost all out there, right? And so not that I buy into that. It's not that I necessarily think that he's necessarily right. Although if he is, I'll be happy because I'm a Bitcoin holder too. But this idea of $10 million Bitcoin over the time frame he's talking about. But when you talk about some of the concepts behind what he's getting at here, these concepts are true, actually. And so one of them was the S-curve, and I pulled up whatever this website is. I didn't even read it. I just pulled this website up randomly, unrelated to crypto, because it has a visual representation that I wanted to share with you. It's a chart, just a generic chart showing what an S-curve looks like. And so basically what it's illustrating is that as time passes, you can imagine whatever you're applying to this, say it's a new technology. It could be the internet. You can see that, for a long time, yes, there's an uptick in terms of, you can imagine if this were internet users, but it reaches this inflection point where it's just like, whoa. And it just goes just ballistic in terms of adoption. It goes truly exponential adoption. And then you can see it, just look at the rate of increase here. If you're looking at the screen, you know what I'm talking about. But then there comes a point where almost everybody has already adopted the technology, so the rate of adoption actually slows down. And then you get this curve that looks like an S, so that's why they call it an S curve. And then there's also a technology bell curve, which is actually fairly similar, even though it visually looks different. And so here's another website. I didn't even read this. They just had a generic graphic that was great for an illustrative purpose for my video. And so I just pulled it up here. Here you can see that there's another S curve, and then they put a technology bell curve right on top of it, just overlaid it. So when it comes to a technology bell curve, it's basically looking at the same data, but reporting it in a different way. So rather than showing an endless increase to the upside effectively, because the whole world eventually adopts whatever the technology is, it's showing over a period of time what percentage of the populace, just generally speaking, would have adopted the technology at what time. And so you get this rise here, but then it goes back down. It's not, again, to be clear, it's not indicating that fewer people are unadopting the technology. It's showing that later in time, it's a smaller percentage at that particular juncture in time that are adopting it. So you can see it's very similar data that's being considered. It's just being represented differently. And I've talked about both of these before. I've talked about the technology bell curve many times over the years, as well as the S curve. And the visual makes it really easy to understand what we should expect here. Should XRP continue to be adopted? So the reason I wanted to highlight this and make sure we're on the same page is because when it comes to XRP specifically, we are not seeing an S curve or a technology bell curve adoption in terms of price action. But that doesn't matter. You know what not right now anyway. You know what we are seeing? We are seeing XRP being adopted in a way that would fit perfectly with the S curve, the concept of it, as well as XRP being adopted in a way that's perfectly in line with what you would expect with a technology bell curve in terms of utility. Set price aside for just a moment. When you're talking about the XRP ledger being adopted and XRP specifically being adopted, it was slow to start, just like any new technology, relatively speaking, of course. And so, of course, there's always, Ripple, the most well-known participant in the XRP ecosystem. I think it's fair to argue that. There's a very diverse ecosystem, so even without them, XRP still lives. It's still fine, but they're the most well-known at this point, I think it is fair to say. And so you can look at their adoption. Their adoption has been exponential to an insane degree, year over year over year, ever since they launched on-demand liquidity back in 2018. The amount of participants, in fact, the last time they reported numbers, I think there was something up. I can't remember what the last report was, but I remember talking about it, and they were up 800% but year over year for whenever that report was out. Folks, we had never seen anything like that for on-demand liquidity adoption, which of course requires the usage of XRP. So that's just one use case. But then what have we also found out? Well, especially thanks to the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit. Well, look at all the amicus briefs. We found out that there are a bunch of developers out there building on top of the XRP ledger because it's incredible from a technological perspective, meaning it's actually useful. And there are more and more developers building all sorts of cool projects that, frankly, we wouldn't have even necessarily known existed, because anybody out there under the sun can just start building on top of the XRP ledger without anyone's permission. And you wouldn't necessarily know what they're doing with it. But we found out about TapJets. We found out about Reaper. We found out about, what Spend the Bits is doing, just a few off the top of my head, right? Cool stuff here. And we've seen increased adoption also, by the way, not just as stuff resulting from the SEC lawsuit, but with NFTs, because we had the XLS 20 amendment passed. And you can see the point I'm getting at. I hope you're getting it. The point is the amount of adoption is increasing, but it's also increasing at an increased pace. So the next part, and it's important to understand that, but that's what I'm saying. We're at the beginning phases of what should, if we're right about it, adoption continuing, it'll look like an S curve. It'll look like a technology bell curve. That's what it's going to look like on a chart. Now, price doesn't look like that, as I noted just a few minutes ago. But even if you want to try to apply price to this concept, okay, fine, I get it. Why doesn't it look like that? Well, because people don't know what the hell to do with crypto, even in 2023. There's so many coins out there. How are you going to sufficiently research them so that you can be confident that you're putting money where it makes most sense. Well, some people are doing, like I am, certainly with XRP. And if you're listening, you've probably done your research or you're in the process of doing it if you're new, and good on you, right? But most people with over 20,000 coins out there, it's a lot of muck to wade through. So what we're seeing shouldn't be surprising, but you're still going to see, ultimately utility mattering more than anything, really, frankly, when it comes to investing. But is it surprising we're not seeing that now? I don't think so. So that's why, despite the fact that we're not seeing that when it comes to price, these types of chart figurations, no, it's not. Even though we've seen greater, if you compare XRP now in terms of price compared to when it was first out, yeah, of course, way higher, fine. But I think as you see the asset class continue to mature, and you see increased adoption, you're going to see, if you zoom out, even though it doesn't look right now like much of an S curve, it's still possible if you zoom out and those coins that matter most, that are solving real problems for real people, those are the ones that get the lion's share of actual money, real investment. You would expect actually to see that type of chart formation if over a longer period of time, if you zoom out. And that could be a very long period of time, decades, if you're talking about real world adoption. Doesn't mean we can't have blow off tops in terms of market cycles over much shorter periods of time. In fact, I anticipate that will be the case. I'm just making the broader point that if you apply, you consider what's going on in terms of actual adoption utility, if that continues, and then people figuring out and catching up, that's why I started the video off the way I did. The guy saying, hey, I can't believe it, $111 Bitcoin. This is crazy. It's so expensive. It's so high. Well, if I ever record a video where I'm just losing my ever-loving mind about $4, $5, $6 XRP, well, fast forward to the future a bit. If we're right, and it's not guaranteed, but if we are, and XRP has tremendous adoption, I think the money follows. That's the broader point that I wanted to make about this. And so then you have this, again, this is the article from the Daily Huddle about Plan B and this $10 million Bitcoin. And I don't make price predictions. I don't pretend to know where this go, but check this out. A rapid acceleration in Bitcoin's pace of global adoption could catapult the top cryptocurrency to staggering new heights, according to quantitative analyst Plan B. In a series of tweets, this anonymous strategist says the most powerful part of Bitcoin's adoption S-curve is around the corner. The adoption S-curve is often used to track the cumulative rate at which people adopt breakthrough technologies. According to Plan B, Bitcoin's pace of adoption is about to witness an unprecedented level of acceleration that could bring its price to as high as $10 million by 2028. And he shared a couple charts here. The one on the left there, I believe that was the one that's log, I think, and then the second one's linear. And so anyway, here's the quote though from him. If Bitcoin adoption is now 1 to 5%, then we will enter the vertical of the S-curve next couple of years. On log scale left, yeah, that's right. On log scale left, this just means more exponential growth until 50% adoption. For the linear thinkers on the right, everything will change. Bitcoin might be substantially undervalued. Although I enjoyed Bitcoin adoption the last 10 plus years, especially the investment returns, I am really looking forward to the vertical part of the S-curve in the next halving period, 2024 to 2028, end quote. So the concept of the S-curve as applied here does make sense in terms of the dollar figure. But see, this is the cool thing though. That's why I'm saying like the dollar figures that we're talking about here, even for XRP and our expectations, like even the people that voted, yeah, I'm going to start selling my XRP at $15 to $20. Well, if XRP is globally adopted on a major scale a couple decades from now, people are like, wow, they were willing to sell at $20. That's insane. So it's all about, the moment in time you're in. But that's what makes it so fun to even kind of think about. Because you're talking here, potentially about when it comes to XRP, my gosh, $6. If it's truly going to continue to be adopted, I think we all kind of, like, the writing's on the wall, and I think we all know what this means. If it's truly going to be adopted and increase adoption at an exponential pace, wow. Like, I can only imagine. I'll be looking like that guy, be like, oh my God, I can't believe it's $6 XRP, and then somebody's gonna be looking in the future like, but it's like $200 now, bro. Like, who knows? Who knows what the price will be? I'm just making something up. But the concept is correct, and we are here that early. And look, the opportunity, and nothing's guaranteed in investing, certainly, but man, if anything's ever going to pay off in investing in some sort of miraculous major way, like what we're talking about here, if it pays off for any of us, it's because we're here early enough. That's true of anything when it comes to investing, not just crypto. And so the other people, even if you invest a decade from now, maybe it's going to go way higher from there. But in terms of percentage gains from that point, it would be meager compared to what the first adopters would get. Again, true of anything that you're investing in, should it continue to get adopted. So it's a cool point to be in. That's like, I don't know. I even was like everybody else. I jumped into crypto 2017. I was like, I wish I knew about it sooner. Kind of you have this feeling like you missed out on something a little bit late to the party. But I quickly put my feet grounded back in reality. And I was like, nah, I'm early. It was 2017. I'm like, no, I'm early. And even in 2023, less early, but still very early. People haven't figured out hardly a damn thing, at least not the investing public. Kidding me? We're still arguing and fighting with the SEC. Like, we're nowhere near, being to any sort of reasonable completion level here. I think this is going to be worth way more in the future. And so we're going to find out what actually happens. But what a freaking ride it's going to be. So you all tell me what you think. I just thought I'd share some of my thoughts, but I'll wrap up here. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.